It should come as absolutely no surprise, folks, but everyone and their mother and their mother's mother is excited for the opening of Epic Universe. And with good reason. I mean, this park's going to be absolutely jam-packed with elite level rides and attractions, at least as far as we can tell at this moment in time. However, with some, big time headlining top build rides and attractions sort of soaking up all the spotlight. Think about your Harry Potter lands, your Ministry of Magic attractions, your Nintendo lands, and your Mario Kart rides, and your Donkey Kong roller coasters, right? These are the attractions that are really at the tip of everyone's tongues when it comes to Epic Universe, and these are the rides they really want to tackle first when they go to this park. However, as a result of this, inevitably, a number of attractions are going to find themselves being sort of kicked under the rug and going under the radar, being severely overlooked by the general public. And listen, when it comes to rides at a theme park, whether it be a brand new one or an old one, rides typically are the main attraction. They're what people are always thinking about when they think about a theme park. It's the first thing on their mind, understandably so. But even then, there are sometimes going to be rides that fall beneath the cracks. And in the case of Epic Universe, this is no exception, at least for one attraction. And no, I'm not talking about the carousel. Like, come on. I'm talking about Hiccup's Wing Gliders. No, I'm kidding, folks. We're not talking about a flat ride here. Of course, those get overlooked, deservedly so. But there's one ride that's actually a meaningful, impactful, and meaty ride within this lineup that Epic Universe will debut with that is getting severely underestimated by the general public, and that is the Curse of the Werewolf roller coaster. This is, of course, the first spinning roller coaster that Universal has ever built in their history, and it will be one of the two rides making up the Dark Universe land. And listen, folks, just listen to this ride synopsis that Universal has already provided us with. Maleva, leader of the Guild of Mystics, welcomes you to a secluded wagon camp. Here, you're warned of the creatures who prowl the deep woods. Before long, you're riding Curse of the Werewolf. Surrounded by glowing eyes and gnashing teeth, you'll spin and weave through the forest as you attempt to escape a pack of werewolves. Ooh. I tell them the werewolves are dangerous. They say put a roller coaster in the paddock. What could go wrong? No, but seriously, like, come on. Does that not sound like classic Universal fanfare? Like, that's exactly what we pay to come to these parks for. Now, there's a few reasons why people are overlooking this attraction, and to be fair, there are totally reasonable and understandable positions to be taking, and obviously the first one, well, it's in the name, right? It's because it's a spinning roller coaster. If you have any issues or concerns with nausea whatsoever, you're probably staying very far away from this attraction. You don't want anything to do with it, and that's understandable. I totally get it, but I have to say, you might be overestimating the intensity of this attraction. After all, the manufacturer of this ride, Mock Rides, has two different models for their spinning coasters. One is the extreme version, and then the other is the family version. And this is going to be the family version, so it's not going to be as intense as that other model. And here's the thing. I have ridden the extreme version. I rode one of them over in Silver Dollar City in Branson, Missouri. That ride being Time Traveler. And let me tell you, even though this ride carries a much higher speed than Curse the Werewolf will, has intense drops, including one right out of the station that has some great airtime to it, and also has some inversions, let me tell you, I did not feel nauseous on this thing whatsoever. And you're talking to a guy who can get nauseous on the teacups without even spinning his teacup. So, the fact that I didn't get nauseous on it, I mean, that's a pretty big testament. And again, that's the extreme version. That's with higher speed. That's with going upside down while spinning. So if you're telling me that I didn't even get nauseous on that, then there's a pretty good chance that the family version is not going to cause many people to get nauseous. Now, why is the reason for that? You might expect a spinning coaster to almost certainly cause nausea, especially if you are susceptible to getting sick on spinning attractions. However, the thing is, with these Mock Ride spinning roller coasters, at least the newer models, is that they're not necessarily a controlled spin, right? A controlled spin is basically when the movement of your ride vehicle, as far as how much it spins, is controlled and already designated by the ride design. So think about something like Guardians of the Galaxy Cosmic Rewind, right? And that's a tilt coaster. It doesn't like fully spin, but it will tilt your ride vehicle to face the same direction at the same moment of the ride every single time. This is not necessarily controlled, right? There's not going to be the same exact designed spin every single time you ride. However, it is what I would call maintained spin, right? This is not a free spin, right? You're not going around like a top or a dreidel, right? That's not happening. What's happening here is that you are spinning, but you're not ever going to spin at an obscenely fast rate. And in fact, you can see this in the test footage, right? I mean, the spinning not only does it not look particularly intense, but it even looks somewhat mundane at certain parts during this ride. And that's good, honestly. I mean, for it being a family roller coaster and being at Universal, a part that's supposed to appeal to the widest group of people possible, if you're going to have a spinning coaster, make sure it's a coaster that's not likely going to cause any sort of nausea. And that's exactly what Universal has done here. So, I mean, you think about like the spinning that you see on Galaxy Spin down the street at Fun Spot Kissimmee, or any other spinning roller coaster maybe you've seen at a regional theme park or at a carnival. You might expect it to go off the rails and go crazy. Galaxy Spin over at Fun Spot Kissimmee is absurd, the spinning on that. I mean, craziness. This is going to be nothing like that. So if you are worried about getting nauseous on this thing, you have a really good chance of not having to worry about that unless you are like extremely sensitive to it. If you're extremely sensitive to it, then I would say stay away. But if something that doesn't necessarily happen on every single roller coaster, then you're probably fine here. However, there is another concern that people do have about this attraction that's totally understandable, and that's its capacity. Of course, these trains aren't super long, but that's not really where the issue comes in. It's because this attraction does do what I would call a slingshot launch during the ride, where basically you launch forward in a section, then roll backwards, go through that launch again, but backwards, then go up a hill, and then come back through that launch a third time, and then actually have the speed to get over that hill that you went backwards on prior. Now, this is a great moment on the ride, most certainly, especially when you are going through this building, which will have some really cool theming elements to it, undoubtedly. But that being said, it also means that the ride vehicle will be stuck in that portion of the ride for a significant amount of time. And as a result of that, that means that they won't be able to get as many trains on the track as maybe they would normally be able to do with a train that just ran through the layout without any interruptions. Thus meaning that the ride's potential ridership per hour is going to be lower than one might expect for an attraction like this. And as a result, the line will move a whole lot slower and will ultimately result in a longer wait time for this ride, even if not that many people are choosing to ride it. However, I think people are kind of underestimating Universal's operations here, because obviously, while the ride is doing that sort of slingshot launch, Universal will still be unloading trains, there'll still be loading trains, they'll be moving trains into other parts of the ride that have dark ride elements that would also result in them being stopped for a significant amount of time. And when all is said and done, I think that Universal will have accounted for the time it takes to do that slingshot launch in the rest of the ride layout, allowing for Universal to have the capacity that they think the ride needs. So I don't think Universal is going to be caught off guard by having an attraction in this park that's going to have a severely bad capacity. Is it going to have great capacity? Probably not. But given the fact that we're talking about it here today as an underestimated and overlooked attraction, well, hey, I think that we could all agree that it probably isn't going to need obscenely high capacity anyways. And let me say this too. I mean, there's a pretty recent big time slingshot launch roller coaster that just opened a couple years back, and that's a Pantheon over at Busch Gardens Williamsburg. I mean, that's the big brand new ride at Busch Gardens Williamsburg, and it has been for the last couple years, and yet this ride has never had obscenely long waits. Never. It's pretty much always been in line with the other most popular rides in the park. It's never been like obscenely busy, that ride, as far as the wait time goes, which, I mean, kind of says to me like, hey, if the most popular ride at Busch Gardens Williamsburg isn't having a problem capacity-wise with that slingshot launch, then, I mean, I don't really see why Curse of the Werewolf, as a ride that probably would be at best a mid-tier popular attraction, I don't see why that ride would have any issues in capacity. Now, jumping back to Time Traveler really quick, good one, right? I will say, now, I know that is an extreme version of this attraction and this ride type, but that ride is also top 30 roller coasters I've ever ridden for me. Like, that is an extremely good roller coaster. Like, despite it being spinning and being fairly intense, I could ride that coaster all day. That is how comfortable it was to ride. Now, given the fact that that was obviously a lot more intense than what Curse of the Werewolf is going to be, I don't anticipate that Curse of the Werewolf is going to be as good as Time Traveler, but it still has a chance to be a very exciting, fun, and thrilling attraction. And one thing that it has that Time Traveler doesn't is a high level of theming. There's going to be some storytelling here. There's going to be ride audio. There's going to be some cool sets. And there's going to be a massive werewolf animatronic on this thing. And you guys remember that building that you go through on the slingshot launch? Yeah, I'm thinking that that's where this animatronic's gonna go. So you're gonna get quite a few number of opportunities to look at this guy and have him swipe at you on the ride. So that's pretty awesome. And hey, you know what? I mean, if the capacity really is that bad on this ride and it takes forever to do this slingshot launch, hey, you can have a full-on conversation with that werewolf if you wanted to, so hey, good deal. And then, of course, you have the cherry on top of it all, which is, of course, an interaction with the guest path going straight over where guests will be walking, which, of course, not something that happens on a ton of rides, but when it does, it's pretty awesome. Of course, you know, the moment on Velocicoaster, most notable, but this will be pretty fun as well. So you might be saying at this point, okay, you know what? You're right. This ride does sound pretty fun, but I still think it's going to be a mid to low tier attraction at Epic Universe. I still don't think it's going to be anything to write home about. And folks, let me just go ahead and blow your minds for one quick second by laying this out in simple terms. This is an outdoor coaster, correct? Yes. This is a coaster that Universal is listing as a family coaster. Correct, right. It is also going to have a high level of theming and dark ride elements thrown on top of this roller coaster. Right? Following? What do all three of those things have in common with another ride at Universal? Oh, it's Hagrid. This is following the exact same model and formula as Hagrid's Magical Creature Motorbike Adventure. When Hagrid's was first announced, of course, everyone thought it was going to be good. I mean, it's Universal and Harry Potter. How could it not be good? But it was also announced it was going to be a family roller coaster, so nobody really had super high expectations for it. No one thought that it was going to be a top tier ride at the resort, right? Especially following the footsteps of Dueling Dragons, a ride that had kind of made itself super beloved among Universal fans. But once the ride actually opened, I think it smashed pretty much everybody's expectations for it. Even though everyone had expectations that it would be good, it really blew everyone away. And I think it's because it had that family coaster association with it, and it ended up being a lot more intense than people really thought it would be. I mean, it still is a family coaster at the end of the day because it doesn't do anything too crazy, but with all of its launches and the speed it carries throughout the ride, which, by the way, is not to say that this is a fast ride. After all, it is a family coaster for real. That was not a lie. It doesn't actually go that fast, but because it remains close to the ground for its entire runtime, it ends up feeling a lot faster than it actually is. And Curse of the Werewolf is following directly in those footsteps. And when you combine all this together, it ended up making Hagrid a much more entertaining and thrilling experience than people had really expected. And of course, a big reason for that is because of the dark ride and theming elements of this attraction. And I think when people have been talking about Curse of the Werewolf, they've been missing the fact that this is literally the successor, the follow-up to Hagrid. It is doing the exact same thing. It is following the exact same formula. The only difference is that instead of having the gimmick of the motorbike as your ride vehicle, instead now you have a spinning roller coaster as the gimmick. So swap out those gimmicks and everything else more or less is the same as far as what this ride is looking to achieve. Now, is this ride going to be as good as Hagrid? Probably not. I mean, it certainly doesn't have the same budget that Hagrid did. Hagrid had like hundreds of millions of dollars. This ride maybe is lucky to have $100 million, if that, to go towards its budget, but it's going to follow in the very same mold that Hagrid was built from. So there's going to be a lot to look forward to in this attraction. I think it could be a sneaky contender to be a top tier attraction at this park. And people are really overlooking it to an obscene degree. And let me tell you folks, I was just gonna name drop this in a big video about the sleeper hits of Epic Universe, but it turns out that I had so much to say about this one attraction that it warranted his own video. So if that doesn't prove right there that this ride actually has more meat on the bone than you might have originally expected, then hey, I don't know what to tell you, because the proof is in the pudding, folks. And when it comes to the Curse of the Werewolf, don't sleep on it. Don't put it on the back burner. Keep it front of mind. You don't necessarily have to rope drop this thing, but, you know, put it on your radar as something that you need to ride at Epic Universe. Because I'm telling you, folks, the way this thing's shaping up, you will not regret it. So anyways, folks, let me know what you guys think in the comments. Do you agree that the Curse of the Werewolf stands a chance to be an elite coaster at Epic Universe? And if you want to hear me rant and rave about another roller coaster at Universal, go ahead and watch my Hollywood Rip Ride Rocket video. And with that being said, I'll see you all next time. Peace.